A compilation of some of the remarks from Joe Biden in just the last 100 days. Could anybody screw this up better or bigger?
I mean, I think America is at a critical juncture, and it is a question of whether or not America remains the incredibly successful republic she's been for 240 years. Biden basically wants to change the nature of America. He wants to, in effect, Europeanize America to create the kind of model that Europe has, and I would say which is pulling Europe apart and destroying Europe. America is far more successful compared to Europe. It's America that 100 years ago pioneered flight. It's America that pioneered radio and television and the mass production of cars and the digital revolution. Americans have had a better living standard and a better quality of life than Europeans for several generations now. Why? Because of freedom and liberty and the founding ideals. And now we have a president in the White House who is trying to import the European model of high tax, high regulation, high spending, and it will be a disaster if it happens.
It is a lot of assumption going on, and people are wondering how many of the strings is Joe Biden pulling himself. Who else is doing this? People point to Susan Rice. I'm not even sure. I don't think it's Kamala Harris. I really don't. I think she's so disenfranchised from what really is going on. When he handed her, supposedly, more responsibility as far as the border, I don't think she wanted that.
I think a lot of people probably voted for Biden. Tens of millions of people probably voted for Biden because they thought it was a return to so-called moderation. But the past 100 days have been anything but moderate. You've seen executive order. You've seen enormous amounts of money being committed, money that America simply doesn't have, and our children's children are going to have to be paying back in higher taxation. It's an extraordinary. Not even Franklin Roosevelt spent money this recklessly.
But Douglas, the question is, if and he did either masquerade or just live on the side of this as a moderate all these years in the Senate. If that's the case, you would think he would still be moderate to some point. Even to the point at his age, understanding he's not going to be around that much longer, he doesn't want to leave America in rubble or in ashes. But the way he's going, he would do that, and not much of a legacy there. Well, is he the one pulling the strings?
I simply don't know about the internal dynamics of the White House, but what I do know is that republics are destroyed either by war or by debt, and America's not going to be destroyed by war, but it's making a jolly good effort under Biden to be destroyed by debt. The amount of debt that has been incurred in the past 100 days is extraordinary. More debt has been incurred in the United States in the past 18 months than over decades. It's quite extraordinary. It's a huge burden for future generations of Americans to carry.
Let me give you this one just for an idea, and I think most people in the South, certainly people in this audience, understand this. Biden celebrated the Amtrak's 50th anniversary. He did this on Friday, and he did that by saying we want to give them $80 billion, $80 billion more spending for the passenger train system. He said, I've been riding on Amtrak for almost as long as there's been an Amtrak, well, probably longer. The president spoke of the 30th Street station of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, recalling his long history of traveling to Delaware on a train from Washington, D.C., when he was a senator. And he went all through those stories, those hokey little stories. Amtrak is government-owned, government-controlled. They're union-operated. They employ more than 20,000 workers. They're led by a CEO appointed by the President of the United States, maintains an annual budget that is allocated by Congress. It doesn't matter how much they fail. Amtrak is like, to me, the adult child living in your basement with a court order that you have to feed and care for him for the past 40 years.
But the radical left loves subsidizing railways because railways have to be collective. You can't have your own train. You can't have your own railway line. They love throwing public money at railways. They do this in Europe. I think actually, if you look at a state like Mississippi, it's cars and roads. That's the kind of investment we need, if anything.
It is interesting. A guy named Anthony Haswell, founder of the National Association of Railroad Passengers, and Anthony is a guy that was widely recognized as the inspiration for Amtrak over 40 years ago. He wrote a letter. It's been a while ago, and said basically that Amtrak has turned out to be an embarrassment and inefficiencies have prompted Haswell to write this. He wrote, Amtrak is a massive failure because it's wedded to a feral paradigm. It runs trains that serve political purposes as opposed to being responsive to the marketplace. America needs passenger trains in selected areas. It doesn't need Amtrak antiquated route system, poor service, and unquestionable or unreasonable operating deficits.
It's extraordinary. You know, half a century ago, one of my favorite American writers, Ayn Rand, wrote a novel about big government getting involved in
yes, he did.
railroads. And, you know, the moral of that story was that big government destroys enterprise and wealth. And, you know, half a century on, we've got a federal authority hosing public money at Amtrak. It's extraordinary.
When you start looking at what the government's taken over, military should be number one, but they deliver the mail, and that's costly. And it hasn't been efficient. Amtrak is the other example. And, of course, they want to take over the entire health system. If people look at those two examples, they'd run like hell. Mm-hmm. Because with Obama and Biden, the last time they said we're going to save you $2,500, we're going to make health care so much easier, better, more efficient, plus we're going to save you $2,500 a year per family on your health care. Mm-hmm. After that, why would anybody believe this guy? But more than one honest reporter has revealed that the pricing is dictated, as far as Amtrak is concerned, by politics. The Sunset Limited, I pull this data here, the Sunset Limited goes from L.A. all the way across the country down to New Orleans. Takes 47 hours, about 47 and a half hours. They charge you $133. $133. Now, how the hell can you make any money like that? That means every passenger who buys a ticket is costing every American city is a loser. Mm-hmm. It's costing every American citizen money. Every time they get somebody to make a customer, we got to pay. The only reason the Sunset Limited route is still in existence is politics. Amtrak needs subsidies to stay in business. Hang on, folks, because this is it. Those subsidies have to be approved by Congress. Therefore, Amtrak needs to keep certain politicians happy. Like, for instance, keeping a money-losing route open in exchange for votes from the politician who represents the districts the train runs through. It's that simple. It's all politics.
It's a system.